Did you know Ken Jeong before that, or did
No,
were you aware of him?
I think that was the first time I saw him on the big screen, especially in that movie. My point of view on that movie specifically is that I actually really enjoyed the movie. And obviously a lot of people did. When that character came out, I mean, I thought it was funny. I didn't really think of it as a whole Asian representation thing. Like back then, when nobody talked about representation, nobody talked about
why it was important.
For me, what I was going to say was, yes, it didn't look great if I really think about it that deep. But I grew up in New York City. I was constantly surrounded by Asians, in my community, in the city, in my school, in my class. So like, I knew that wasn't a typical Asian. Like I knew a lot of Asians I knew were like me. We're tall. We have a mix of nerdy guys, geeky guys to athletic guys.
Confident guys.
I know Asian guys are interested in all these different things. So to me, when I saw that, I was just like, oh yeah, that's not me. I didn't think that was the one and all representation thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't take it personally, but I do understand where other people are coming from. I think especially if you lived in the middle of America, if you're the only Asian in your community and you're the only Asian in high school, in school, I can imagine people using him as like the joke, right? Like calling you his character or referencing him as a joke. I can also imagine why all the hate.
No, I totally agree. And it's funny because when, I brought up this topic, I was just really thinking, like at the time I wasn't mad about it, but I think it's like what you said. I didn't really notice it because I've had so much exposure to Asians. Like you said, representation wasn't really a thing then, and why it was so important, why it could, psychologically kind of mess you up.
Mm-hmm.
And then now that we're kind of deep in this now, we're kind of exploring representation. Like now I see how detrimental his role was, especially during the time of 2009. And for those non-Asians that don't get a lot of exposure to Asians, which is a lot of people because us as a population, we're very small, 6%. But if you're only counting for Asians that look like us, not talking about South Asians, right now we're even a smaller percentage. So you would probably say 80-90% of America hasn't had exposure to Asians the way we have. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, it hurts the image 100%. And I see why people are so angry. And maybe we're teased about Leslie Chow or about suck my small Chinese dick, like very loud and obnoxious, shorter, and the one that didn't get the girl in there, he was just like this weird kind of creeper dude,
When I think about him, I also think of another negative like Asian portrayal was the character in like Breakfast at Tiffany's. This was like way back. They didn't even use an Asian guy to play this
like a white guy,
Asian Japanese character. So like I think before that was probably the worst negative stereotype character we had. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we talked about the negative on this film alone, but I feel like the positive on this is that this was his big break.
Yeah.
Like he, I can see that from his point of view, this was his big break, and he's in a film with Bradley Cooper, with like all these like cast and a big budget film. So for him, it was like, hell yeah. And I don't even know if he thought about what the character was supposed to be, and he still signed on to do it. But I just feel like the opportunities back then were so few and little that it was only offered to Asians to play these stupid characters, to be that kind of like joke of the movie, right? Like, like this caricature, like he's the jokester role in this movie.
I agree. It's really tough. And again, the opportunities were so slim and small. And it's tough because had he been a white actor, right? Mm-hmm. Taking this role is fine because there's so much representation. But because he took it at a time when we don't have anything to balance this negative stereotype role.
Mm-hmm. True.
And it's rare because we have John Cho, we have Daniel J. Kim turning down roles like this, right? But it's hard if you're trying to make it. You know what I mean? And given the fact that Ken Jeong has always been sort of like a comedian, so he would have taken this role on anyway.
Exactly. I think that's where people didn't know his full life story. before judging all this. Obviously, everyone's just focused on the negative, the end product.